What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome to the MKO Pugilism Boxing channel where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, put on also get notified as soon as any new content drops on the channel. So let's get into this one. So yeah, I've been hearing a few rumblings, a bit of news, a bit of I don't know whether this is official, but I think it was Boxing King Media who I heard it from, and that was in collaboration with another channel. I think it may have been Fight Hype or someone, but nonetheless, the rumors are. I don't think it's official as yet as we speak, but yeah, there's a strong possibility that we're going to have Terence Crawford versus Chris Eubank Jr. and this would take place at middleweight, 160 pounds, and so it is a very strange one. This is again, it's one of those fights where it just kind of comes out of nowhere. To be brutally honest, it comes out of nowhere because this is not a fight that I would say that the public, the people were asking for. I think even when we talk about Eubank Jr. versus Conor Ben, even that was kind of out of nowhere because of the weight disparity between the two. So it was like, yeah, more of a fantasy fight. If they were around the same weight, it would be interesting. But even that, no one really asked for. But this one is it's just weird. It just comes out of nowhere, and it's interesting because for me, I can't really see what either man has to. I mean, I can only see Chris Eubank Jr. with something to gain here in this situation because for Chris Eubank Jr., you know, he's not on any pound for pound list. He is a very good fighter. You know, he didn't have many in the amateurs. I think he only had about 25, 26 fights. So yeah, he's done a lot in his career. He's made a fortune, made a lot of money. Not quite made it to the very top, but he's a guy that has, you know, done well for himself. Um, Whereas Terence Crawford is a pound for pound great. He's pound for pound number one for a lot of people's in a lot of people's minds. I don't have a problem with that myself. It's probably between him, Inui, you know, guys like that. Um, but yeah, it's a superb fighter. But yeah, it's interesting and it's kind of strange in a way because I would have thought that with Terence Crawford, if he's gonna do something of this nature, it would be against. I think, although I think the weight is too much, like 168 to go up and challenge Canelo, but I would have thought something like that would have made a bit more sense because what you're doing is you're welterweight and you're going up three weight divisions and you're fighting for that guy's titles at his weight. That for me, as far fetched as it is, as much of a massive disparity as it is, that kind of makes sense because you're going there and you're going to up to the weights and you're taking someone's titles and that goes down in the history books. Same at middleweight. If there was an undisputed middleweight champion and he wanted to, you know, he wanted to go from 147 to 160, fight a champ. You know, even if it just to fight one of the other champions, although to be fair, yeah, their names are not exactly massive names and money wise, you're probably not going to generate as much money. And maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's just a money thing where, you know, Chris Eubank's name carries more weight and will make it more lucrative. But I think to me, Chris Eubank Jr. hasn't really got anything that Terence Crawford needs, or I would argue wants. I mean, apart from the idea of going up a couple of weight divisions, I mean, Chris Eubank Jr., good fighter, but you know he doesn't hold any belts at middleweight. He doesn't hold any. You know, there's nothing really there apart from the weight jump that should appeal. I would have thought someone more like a Tim Zhu once Tim Zhu's finished with his fight against Keith Thurman. I would have thought a fight like that would have made more sense because at least Tim Zhu is a champion at light middleweight. So you go up, you fight him, you take his belt, and perhaps you try and repeat the trick of doing running through champions at 154. I thought that would have made sense. Although yes, those guys are not the massive names like Errol Spence was, but achievement wise, it kind of makes sense. I mean, and I think for Chris Eubank Jr., this is just a weird one where he's, I suppose, if you can beat Terence Crawford, even if it is at middleweight, that's a great achievement on his part. But for Terence Crawford, I'd have him as a red hot favourite in this fight. I think if it does happen, Terence Crawford is just far too good, far too skilled, and he's not the smallest of welterweights. So I think he'll do the weight well, and he may even be able to get rid of Chris Eubank Jr. inside the distance, because I just think the skill gap is that vast. And I think the only chance you could give someone like a Chris Eubank Jr. is if he was a Triple G type of puncher where he's putting guys to sleep in every fight, and he just has this great punching power. If he had that sort of punching power, then I'd say, well, that makes it more closer to a 50-50 here. But I think because he's not a massive puncher at middle or super middle, he's more a guy that wears you down and throws combinations apart, wears you down over time. But he's not a one-punch knockout man, and I think that because he doesn't have that in his favour, for me, Terence Crawford, if this does happen, massive favourite, and I really wouldn't be surprised if Terence Crawford wins this fight inside the distance. I think because he's just going to be, yes, he's the smaller man, but when a smaller man's just hitting you and hitting you and hitting you, different angles, patterns that you don't see, can switch to southpaw, is a good switch hitter, and just far too good for someone like Chris Hughes. The difference in levels is just massive. And the other weird thing about this whole fight is that, as far as I know, they've got the same trainer. So Brian Bomac, he trains both of them. So he's Terence Crawford's original trainer, I think, from day one. And of recent, since the Smith rematch, he's been training Chris Eubank Jr. and he done a great job with Chris Eubank Jr. I mean, Chris Eubank Jr. went in there like a completely different fighter against Smith, and gave him a beating. Fair enough, Smith rolled his ankle or whatever, but Chris Eubank Jr. still tactically and technically looked very, very good in that fight. So that aspect is really, really weird, because you'd think to yourself, you just got this new relationship with the new trainer, Bomac. You've only had one fight with him, and now you're going to go in there against Bomac's moneymaker, Bomac's star pupil in Terence Crawford, and think you're going to come out victorious. It really is a very, very strange thing, especially with the coaching situation, because at the end of the day, Bomac is going to be faithful to Crawford, because Crawford is his guy from day one. Crawford is the guy that Bomac, he brought up from day one, from debut all the way until, undisputed welterweight champion, undisputed light welterweight champion. Bomac is, these guys, they're like a father and son relationship. They're really, really close. So that's another weird aspect here where I'm baffled. I just don't understand. I mean, for me personally, it's not really a fight I want to see. It's a weird fight, and it's a fight that doesn't make sense. I don't know. Maybe it's because neither one of them has anywhere to go. I guess Eubank is not going to get the Conor Benn fight. He's not really interested in the other champions like Yanni Beck and those guys. Maybe he genuinely isn't interested in them. For Crawford, obviously the Spence rematch isn't going to happen, and I don't know. Obviously, the light middleweight champions are busy, but both men They need to get a move on. They both need a fight, and maybe this is just a case of that. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about this fight. What do you think happens if it does happen? And, just generally, what do you think about this whole situation? Let me know. And until next time, it's MKO Pugilism over and out.